Producer and co-host of the Greg Hill Morning Show and resident weather smoke with his lead yesterday on the program that the New England Patriots, or so he was told by sources at the 2023 NFL Combine, that the New England Patriots hired Bill OBrien to be the offensive coordinator for the 2023 season and beyond as late as November, but as early as December, or as early as November and as late as December. If so, what do they say? If true, big, number one. And number two, I'm curious if Curtis, who is en route back to Massachusetts from Florida, if Curtis has gotten any emails, text messages, or phone calls from your six-time Super Bowl champion New England Patriots or anyone else in the National Football League, because if there is a shred of truth, if there is any validity to that report, the New England Patriots would be in big trouble. Like we're talking, if you thought Spygate was an issue, if you thought Spygate 2, which was a total non-story, became a thing, if you thought Deflategate was one of the greatest farces of all time because it was nothing more really than retribution for Spygate and the way Goodell handled that, wait until this comes to pass. If there's any truth to it, the Patriots, I mean, this is the kind of thing, Courtney, I'm not joking here. Like, this would be.
But how do they get in trouble for what?
For completely skirting the Rooney Rule.
Does anybody really believe the Rooney Rule?
It doesn't matter.
I mean, I think all they have to do is say, "Yeah, we interviewed Troy Brown."
But then what was the whole routine with the 5 video conferences with Jerod Mayo, who they made such a big story and deal about, retaining the services of on the coaching staff, sitting with Bill Belichick for Sean Jefferson and Adrian Clem and Bill OBrien and everyone else that they spoke to, ultimately to decide on the guy.
The biggest fraudulent thing out there. The NFL doesn't care about that. As long as, and there's really no way, because all they got to do is say, well, we interviewed this person.
Right. Back in November, we talked to a bunch of people.
Yeah, we interviewed, you know what? We also talked to Adrian Clem. Yeah, the whole, like, the Rooney Rule thing is now, I don't know how the tampering
farce.
You know, I don't know how the whole tampering thing works with, like, coaches, but no one buys the Rooney Rule. I mean, if anybody buys the Rooney Rule is like the salary cap. Does
tampering matter if he's a college coach?
Yeah, I don't even know.
I don't think
no,
so.
in that regard, no. And don't forget, we went through the whole routine of some people saying it was a fireable offense for Belichick to have basically known the whole while that he wanted to bring Billy O'Brien back, but he didn't want to do his good friend Nick Saban dirty. So he had Patricia reverse engineer a terrible offense for the year as a placeholder, and what a whole to-do that was. But like they have these things in place for a reason, and yes, tampering takes place all the time.
We were hearing about Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos during the season after week 3, and don't seem like the NFL was looking for any Rooney Rule there. So I don't.
I hadn't heard Sean Payton to the Broncos. I had heard Sean Payton perhaps, you know, if they decided to move on from that bozo Staley out in Los Angeles, maybe that he would end up going out there. They're too cheap to fire.
Well, I guess the only point that I'm saying, Fitzy, is that the NFL, no one cares about the Rooney Rule. They may. You know, talk about like they do care about it, but it means absolutely nothing. And you see it with coaches that, you know, coaches get hired all the time.
And the timing lines up perfectly to what Curtis is saying, because Bill OBrien started, you know, loosely talking about how he would be open to making a return to the NFL in the last week of November. So
but you can't mention it with any specificity because that would mean there are possible conversations.
Correct.
And any collusion therein, and there's a big word that we'll get to in a minute about another certain player right now who I do believe is getting colluded against. If this happens to, let's say, the Jaguars, if they were talking to somebody during the Urban Meyer debacle, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Houston Texans, there might be a small fine. It'll be buried at the top of the masthead on ESPN.com, like Jaguars fine, third-round pick.
Like the Texans were yesterday.
Exactly, yeah. They had a salary cap issue, right, Shimon? So they were fined.
They mishandled Deshaun Watson holding out and where he was training during COVID.
Bingo.
And so they got fined like $50,000 and a 5th-round draft pick.
Right. So it may end up being a smaller issue. Now, they may make a bigger issue of it on NFL Network and some other places just to hand-wring and let people know, like the Rooney Rule needs to be taken seriously. We are promoting diversity here in the NFL, and nobody can skirt the system that we have in place because it's there for a reason to provide multiple opportunities. I agree with you. The fact that, like, oh, hey, promote from within and maybe hire a minority candidate, and we'll give you this new blender. I mean, a third-round draft pick. I mean, like, it's gross to a certain degree. But it's the Patriots. And the Patriots are one of these national teams. They're a click and bait team. They are headline grabbers. And if there's any truth to this in the NFL, this catches the 345 Park Avenue's ears and they say, let's go ahead and poke around and see if there's any truth to that. It would be a bad look.
You're going to need somebody that is very you're going to need like a Stephen A. Smith who is very appalled by it, right?
He's very proactive on that.
Right, and then have to make like a huge stink about it. But I don't think like I honestly I don't think like it's a big issue, especially now, because the reason why I almost felt like, and this is my personal feel on it, I felt like they were interested in Billy O'Brien when Josh McDaniels left. So I almost feel like they had been talking to him forever. And I don't really, and I even think like guys like Stephen A. Smith and, whether it's Ryan Clark, I think they kind of use it to see if they can, while you kind of get the people going. But I don't think people really care no more about the Rooney Rule, especially like black fans and black people in the media, because we know it's a joke.
So it wouldn't bother you if there was truth to this and they had previously hired and they didn't give anyone else a legitimate look?
Because that's what they do in the NFL. They do it for every team. Like
Wiggy's been on this too. Yeah. Wiggy's been saying that he thinks that Bill has been, Billy O'Brien was Bill's guy from the jump.
It was the worst kept secret in the world that there was mutual interest and they wanted to recouple. Now, whether Bill O'Brien was promised certain things, more autonomy this time around, whether he's the head coach in waiting, or I believe it's Jerod Mayo, hence why they made such a big deal of letting everybody know that he was going to be sticking. I do. I think Jerod Mayo is definitely the next coach. 2, 3, 4 years. But see, now
they're saying that it's Billy O'Brien. There's no way, and see, this is why I don't think that it's Jerod Mayo, because I don't think he's going to wait around in New England, especially when
36. I mean,
but how long? But how long do you wait for Bill?
3 years? That doesn't seem like that long. If you're getting paid really well, you like where you're at, and you're learning, and you're under Bill.
But what if an opportunity opens up next year?
I don't know. I think
he's not.
You want to go be the defensive coordinator
of not
Lions?
Defensive coordinator, but he becomes the head coach.
Okay, head coach of the New England Patriots, a franchise you are incredibly familiar with.
That you have to wait for, and there's no guarantee there.
But it could be in writing for all we know. We don't know. I mean, we don't know that. Why would Robert Kraft make such a show of bringing Jerod Mayo around with it? He sits in the front row with him at Patriots games. When they put out a press release, it gets leaked out that he's so mad, and all the season ticket members get that email saying, like, trust me, we hated the way the season ended. We're going to go through a lot of different steps. Change will be brought about in Foxborough. This I command.
But what did they do with Jerod Mayo?
Then the next day, a press release on a Tuesday night?
What did they do? But they didn't make him a defensive coordinator, because everybody told me, he's going to be.
Because you've got Steve there as well. They don't have to do anything different. He's like the de facto assistant head coach.
That's my point. So I think he ultimately gets an opportunity to go somewhere else. If their defense continues to be good next year, and Jerod Mayo is starting to get the buzz that he's creating, I think he ultimately goes someplace else.
There has to be something more to it, though, because all we heard before, Kraft did this big announcement was that Jerod Mayo was not going to stick around unless he was named the defensive coordinator. He wanted that title, and that's all we heard. To then not have that title but still be around, and for them to make a big show out of it, there had to be something else promised.
That would mean Bill would have to say, I'm done in 3 years.
Yeah.
Do you believe Bill has said that?
No, I don't believe Bill has come out and said. I do believe Bill will absolutely stick around. And won't it be so ironic if he has more difficulty attaining his 348 wins when he has to go up against Tom Brady, quarterback of the Miami Dolphins?
But if you're Mayo,
time and again.
But if you're Mayo, do you trust it and wait around for 3, 4, 5 years?
If it's in writing,
if you've got Jonathan Kraft's word or it's in writing,
you would have to have it in writing, and you would have to have lawyers and all that other stuff. But isn't that then? I don't know if you teams can do that. I mean, I have no idea. The only problem I worry about with Mayo and him waiting is then what happens to him that happened to Eric Bieniemy. Right? Eric Bieniemy was the hottest thing out there, And then all of a sudden, this guy had to now go to Washington to be the offensive coordinator to
That was a smart move on his part.
But in order to like kind of rejuvenize or re-energize his name and what it meant in the league. So I'm not 100. And then why does Billy O'Brien come back? People tell me Billy O'Brien came back because he's the next guy in line.
Right. I'm going to take rejuvenize and run with that. It's yours, but I will give you proper credit. That's my new favorite wiggy word.
Light it up.
That's my absolute new favorite wiggy word.
I don't buy it.
Two, I think it was a smart move by Bieniemy as well because you're always going to have it's like, oh, he's a good play caller. Yeah, but he's not really the coordinator because it's more Andy Reid, it's more Patrick Mahomes. By going to Washington to that absolute tire fire of a franchise, and my God, please, Bezos, save us from the Daniel Snyder debacle sometime soon. He coaches up Sam Howell, and he gets them to be a functional offense. If not, maybe they challenge for the NFC East. People will say, oh, it wasn't just Mahomes. Oh, it wasn't just Andy Reid. And for Jerod Mayo to turn down an interview to be the defensive coordinator in the Eagles because Jonathan Gannon left, or to turn down an opportunity in Carolina, that has to be a double hand tip, that he's sticking around not just because they gave him some extra money or his kids like it here. It's because there's going to be a grander opportunity in play. And Bill O'Brien is here.
Wife from here?
Sure.
Right. So that plays a role into it. Why would I want to go to Philly? And so Philly offered him the defensive coordinator.
So the two main requests were defensive coordinator with the Philadelphia Eagles, I believe, and the head coaching opportunity in Carolina.
Which was a dog and pony show. Yeah, which was probably just in the Rooney Rule interview. They were giving that to Frank Reich.
And I think he knew that. Like I think
which
Mayo,
is why he turned it down.
I think Mayo's getting hip to like the whole Mayo, the Mayo
Rule,
the Mayo Rule, the whole Rooney Rule is a dog and pony show, and I think a lot of black coaches that are successful defensive coordinators, offensive guys, are getting hip to it and going, listen, I'm not coming to interview unless I know I got a 95% chance of getting this job, similar
like
to DeMeco Ryans in Houston. So I think that's why he's turning that down. But if there's a real opportunity, let's say between now and the next 3 years, and Bill's still being the head coach, where the team is like, Mayo, you're our guy. Kind of what we saw with the Texans and DeMeco Ryans. Like, yo, you come here, you're our guy. I think you see Mayo going somewhere else.
A good question from Twitter from Dan Bradley. Doesn't the Rooney Rule only apply to off-season hires and not mid-season hire? Is that a loophole?
I have no idea.
I have no idea, but that is something to consider.
That's
no, I believe the Rooney Rule only applies to it doesn't apply to in-house promotions.
Yes.
I think is the only way it doesn't apply. Okay. I'm not 100% sure on that. I could be wrong, but I know for a fact that's
the
one
nebulous nature of Matt Patricia's title or lack thereof probably allowed the Patriots last year to be fuzzy with the math, if you will, because he wasn't they never named one. A lot of times when Bill O'Brien took over for Josh McDaniels in 2009, he wasn't named offensive coordinator the first year. It was 2010 and 11 that he actually took the title on as well. They're always a little tricky about those
I didn't even know the Rooney Rule applied to coordinators.
They expanded it. It was just head coaches to begin, but then they expanded it.
Right, so I had no idea.
But also, just like the fact that he was under contract and other opportunities weren't provided, like it could just potentially expand into a series of bad looks. And again, if the NFL or anyone wants to come after any one particular team, it's always going to be the Patriots.
Well, I could see that part of it, and I would go on record that I'm thinking Mayo is a head coach, but it's someplace else.
Let's go to the phones real quick. Gene, the Dancing Machine, is down in Rhode Island. Good morning, Gene. How are you?
Good, thank you. Long-time listener, but I'm just curious, why would Chris want to do that kind of damage to the Patriots? It doesn't make any sense.
I don't think. Well, I think Curtis would want to share. I don't think he would just salaciously grab a headline or do anything that he just.
Well, it's a pretty damaging comment. I'm just confused by it because everybody's always slamming the Patriots about getting better, but I mean that's what sports talk is all about. But they're trying to get better. But why would you want to damage them this way? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, how is it damaging? I mean, all he said is that he had heard that the Patriots and Billy O'Brien, were pretty much close to a deal, or there was a deal that was in place when his season was over.
Well, it was rumored all season long.
Right.
Like, doesn't it make the most sense?
Like
Bill
Courtney asked in November, like there were clear rumors circulating about Bill O'Brien wanting to come back to
Yep.
the NFL and
2-year
having
deal
some
in
kind of
Alabama. Yep.
involvement with the Patriots, and so that's why the question was even asked in the first place.
It's also weird that Bill would say, I haven't talked to him in a little bit. Even if you're not talking about that in that specific situation, you could still have conversations with the guy. To completely say, I haven't talked to him in some time, that's just a blatant lie. If this is all true.
Yeah, and I think that he couldn't say, we were like, the job was his.
No, I know that, but
And
say, I've talked to him, but
And you're also cutting the legs out from underneath Matt Patricia at the same time, too. Like, everyone knew that he was not long for the job. But at the same time, like, we've had conversations. We're going to have a new offensive coordinator next year. I mean, now they put the press release out on Tuesday night confirming what we all expected or suspected the entire time. But you can't come out and say that in season.
But all I was asking was, what does he bring to the league, and would you ever consider a reunion? Like, it wasn't I don't know.
I think it was in season, and Bill, how Bill is. Bill's not giving up any of the, any of the family secrets.
You don't say. Makes me want to take some CBD every time I think about talking to Bill
I
Belichick
do take
as well. I
CBD
know
every
I've
morning.
heard you do as much as well.